Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. You're watching Trip Whip, and today we're going to be talking about one of my most unique psychedelic experiences. I'm going to tell you, as much detail as I remember, at least the bits that interest me, and hopefully they interest you too. So really, I'm just going to dive straight in. I got lots of people to thank for this video, but I'll thank them at the end. But anyway, this trip happened about, I don't know how long ago it happened. It happened a long while back, around the same period that I did my highest dose of acid and I had my DMT breakthrough. Those were extremely positive experiences, very intense, but still extremely positive. But even so, I remember the 2 weeks leading up to this mushroom trip, even though it was still a couple of months after those other trips, but the 2 weeks leading up to this, I was feeling really numb. And I realized the reason for this, which I'll get into at the towards the end of the video. But at this point, I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, it was one of those days where I was just feeling down, and I decided to do the highest dose of magic mushrooms I'd done at this point. I had a bunch left in my freezer. I got them all, soaked them in some lemon juice, or weighed them first, and I weighed them with my Wish scales, which cost me like 15 to 20 bucks. And it's important I mention that because I remember looking at the amount of mushrooms on the scale and I was thinking to myself, this looks like a lot for 3 grams, but I'm going to assume it was 3 grams, and just 3 grams of mushrooms is a lot of magic mushrooms. So I take these mushrooms and I just remember resisting the trip as it's coming on. Like literally, I go to the local park to let the effects kick in. And it's as if I needed prescription glasses all my life and suddenly got them because my visual acuity was bumped up tenfold at this point. So I begin focusing on a nearby tree. I can remember seeing the beautiful sun's glow like coming off the edges of the tree and all the colors being saturated, but my depth perception was impacted heavily, so I could see an intense amount of detail in the bark, but it had this quality that made it hard to ascertain how far away from me it actually was. Unfortunately, the whole time I was thinking, I hope this doesn't get more intense, which is just so stupid. It's like, well, firstly, of course it's going to get more intense. You've just done the highest dose of mushrooms. Like, what do you expect? We're only 40 minutes in, so it's just beginning. And why there's so much beauty there. Like, why wasn't I connecting to the moment? But, these things, they happen for a reason, as I'll get into. I decided in order to calm myself down, because I'm not connecting to the present moment and enjoying what's around me, I decided I'll listen to some psychedelic rock music and go for a walk around my neighborhood, and hopefully they'll put me into the right headspace. Magic mushrooms, they're not like LSD where they make music sound just like on another level amazing, but they don't usually make music sound worse. But this time, the music was turning into just chaos in my ears. Like, literally all the harmony, or the harmonization of all the different instruments was just gone. It no longer made me want to dance. It just sounded like random, sounds just clashing with each other. It wasn't making any sense in my ears at all. And the same thing that was happening in my ears was happening in my visual experience as well. I was having these really intense traces, and so cars would drive by, but it was so intense that the color of the car would stay on the road for like 30 seconds after the car had driven by. The colors were just mashing and bleeding outside the borders everywhere. The blue of the sky was bleeding onto the white of the clouds. It was just turning into utter chaos all around me. I was in this headspace of like, oh no, I hope it doesn't get more intense. Now I was in this headspace of like, clearly it's getting to somewhere intense. But still, instead of just accepting this, letting go, immediately I become afraid. So I start heading home. And this is where, I realize that what I've done, I realize that this mushroom trip is going to be turned up a notch, because I can feel this sense in the back of my head that these entities, which I'd met on the DMT breakthrough and on the high dose of LSD, I could get a sense that they were trying to make contact with me. And I felt like I was getting some guidance from them, saying, go home, lay in bed, and I had this visual image come to me of me basically just letting go in bed and just turning it, or like entering white light and meeting these entities there. It's always been a positive encounter with them. It's super intense, it's super freaky because of the way it rewrites your reality. But they've always had beautiful messages to share. But for some reason, I resisted the hell out of this. As soon as I got this sense that they were in the back of my head, I was like, please don't take me. Let me stay here. I don't want to go with you. Please, no. Which, the whole way, I'm just kicking and screaming and resisting this trip. So I go home. I actually hide the keys that I locked the door with into my cupboard because before this, I had my intense acid trip where I ended up streaking through the neighborhood. And it feels like I'm going to be going back to that same level, that same place. And so I don't want to lose that control, and I don't want to have the same urges to do the same thing again. I take a seat on my couch, and as soon as I close my eyes, everything just goes into white light. A couple of seconds after I closed my eyes, I just felt all of my body parts begin to transform into this, the only way I could explain it is this biological, technological alien structure. So you get the sense of where your hands are, where your feet are. When you close your eyes, you can still kind of sense where they are because there's this energy that is permeating throughout your body. You can feel it. Well, that feeling, that sensation, that's what was transforming. And I remember very specifically my jaw unhinging, and it became part of this really elaborate, it looked like scaffolding, just became really part of this elaborate structure. Now, I know I said alien, and that's a word that gets thrown around all the time in when people are talking about psychedelic experiences. But that's probably because of our limited language trying to make sense of something that language was not meant to describe. Still, I'd say for some reason it didn't feel like this intelligence derived from our planet. It had the sense of being ancient, highly organized, and independently intelligent, yet it did feel like it was interwoven with my consciousness, but was still somehow unimaginably foreign. I know this probably sounds a little crazy, but if it has something to do with the machine of entities I've met before, then I have discussed my theories on where I believe its origins come from, which I'll tag in the top right corner. And I have a feeling it does have something to do with the machine elves. And look, this episode isn't about discussing if this intelligence is real, but it's weird, it's freaky, and it made an appearance quite a few times during this trip. Anyway, I open my eyes and I actually get my laptop and start recording the laptop because I want to explain what I was just seeing while I go through it. But I close my eyes again and nothing. It's literally just like normal vision with the slightest closed-eyed visuals, but barely anything at all. And that surprised me a lot because at that point I'd been used to tripping hard on acid, which is just this clear rise to the peak. The mushrooms is very different in the sense that there's almost like a puppeteer or like a director of your experience, and depending on your reactions to the trip, it reacts differently. If mushrooms feels like there's another player that's orchestrating your psychedelic experience for you, and the way that you interact with that experience changes the way that the hallucinations and your trip interacts with you. It's very weird like that. But anyway, the trip starts increasing and getting more intense. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just try and watch some TV, calm myself down, and hopefully this trip will be over soon. But while I'm trying to watch TV and concentrating on, the TV on the wall, my relationship with my outside physical world starts to transform as well. I'm no longer perceiving the outside world as some separate physical reality. It's seeming more like an aspect of my mind, and it's actually feeling like a hallucination. A hologram. There's a sense of transparency in everything I'm seeing, and they're breathing very intensely, and my mind is just rewiring my relationship with it to remove that physicality out of my outside world. So perhaps it was because I was reacting badly to this and resisting it and thinking to myself, oh no, it feels like it's just getting more intense, but for whatever reason, I'm hit with this wave of extreme depression and extreme anxiety. Far beyond anything I'd ever felt while sober. I've heard people saying that they want to kill themselves on magic mushrooms, and I'm not a suicidal person, but I can definitely understand why you'd feel like that, because there's just this deep hopelessness and unexplainable depression and anxiety. It's definitely not the worst trip I've had. I've still got to talk about these synthetic weed trips that I had in the past, which totally eclipsed this experience, but in terms of its negativity. But it was still way beyond anything I experienced while sober. My internal voice is now saying, when I lay in bed, instead of seeing angels and white light, I'm now going to be bombarded with demonic images or possibly even demonic entities. And it was like, and apparently that's what I have to do. That's what it's telling me to do, is curl up in a fetal position and lay in bed and just experience this, which is terrifying. But at the same time, I don't want to, I'm sitting on the couch feeling like absolute hell, this sucks as well. So I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place. But the funny thing is, this acid trip which I was talking about, one of the things that it was saying was that, one of the things that the machine elves were saying during this trip It was kind of in a weird psychedelic way, but to translate it, it was basically saying you could do whatever you want, whenever you want. Basically, the message behind that was that you're never trapped, and you can feel however you want, whenever you want. And here I was, just feeling like absolute crap, like I want to die. And not that long before this, I'd received that message but totally integrated and believed it. But I think a part of my mind must have retained that, because out of nowhere, this thought just appears, which says, you don't have to feel like this anymore. And I remember having that thought, and as soon as I had it, I grabbed onto it with everything I had. I was like, I don't know how you're right, but I'm not going to argue with you, because I need to believe in this. So I trust it. I attach myself to this thought. And as soon as I do, I decide I need to get out of this room. But this isn't easy. Along with the visual hallucination of the environment containing a holographic quality, the feeling of my outside world being a projection of my mind intensifies. It feels like I'm walking through my mind, and instead of everything containing physical matter, it is instead composed of dark or negative thought matter that is making me further anxious and depressed. I finally get into the new room and I lay down by my heater, but I'm just rocking back and forth due to the anxiety and some body aches now. So I decided at this point that I just begin to meditate, but only for like 30 seconds, so I didn't commit to the meditation and possibly be projected into because meditation usually makes my trips way more intense. So I didn't want to meditate and then find myself in a hell reality or something like that. So I figured I'd just meditate for a little bit, come back to sober reality and just cross back and forth like that. Unfortunately, almost as soon as I begin meditating, I see these demonic faces that look like Balinese masks emerging out of the darkness. It seems like they're trying to further frighten me, so I begin analyzing their appearance as detailed as I can to remain focused without getting drawn into their emotional presence. But then I did it again. I opened my eyes, went into meditation, and this time I must have meditated for a little bit longer than I was intending, because I ended up on the bottom of this ocean. And I remember it felt like that alien quality that I was talking about before, it was contained within this antenna that was sticking out of the bottom of the ground. And at this point I had no self-awareness. There was awareness of some kind, but it didn't feel like it was me. I just felt like a thoughtless viewer. I could sense that there were these alien signals being sent from far in the distance, being received by this alien antenna. It just felt like this whole time that this alien intelligence was trying to make contact with me, but I was just resisting it left, right, and center. So I opened my eyes and I'm still feeling like crap, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I got 6 to 8 hours of this. It's only been 20 minutes where I've been feeling this crap. This is going to be difficult. But out of nowhere, I get my message, my phone just pings with a message, and I open it. And I've received this message from a friend of mine who basically says, hey man, I haven't been feeling happy for a couple of weeks and I'm in hospital now. So I get this, the sense that he's tried to kill himself. As soon as I realized that, I felt responsible because I had wronged this friend a couple of weeks before this trip. Really wronged this friend, and really seriously. And I don't know if I'll say what I did now, but it's just something that I learned to never do again. And but at this time, I hadn't faced what I'd done. I'd been running away from this. But now that I had this message, I realized what I had to do. I had to apologize. So I just wrote out this extremely long but sincere message, apologizing, and click send. And he sends back this message basically saying, I forgive you. And as soon as I got that forgiveness, that message, it may have been when I clicked send after the apology, or when I got the message when he said he forgave me, but as soon as it came, all of the negativity of the bad trip vanished. The bad trip was over. It was done. It was like a curse had been lifted, literally. And I couldn't believe it. It was like there's a storm going on outside, and I just click send, and then the storm just disappears, and the beautiful sunlight just peers through the window. It was like that, literally. I was looking around, and everything was still intense and trippy, but that resistance to it was totally gone. That's basically the whole trip, because after that, like, I still getting, having trippy things happen. Like, I remember I went into my bedroom, and I started like feeling like that alien intelligence was like speaking to me through the light in the ceiling. But now I was in a good headspace, so I was like speaking back to it, learning from it. It's probably not a good headspace, but regardless, like I just was having a great time, and I ended up hanging out with my friend that night and sorting things out. But yeah, the reason why I wanted to talk about this trip, as interesting as that alien aspect of it is, and as much as I'd love to talk about that in the future, what I found really interesting was just how I was resisting the psychedelic experience, or resisting the trip from the get-go, because I couldn't let go. But perhaps the reason I couldn't let go was because subconsciously I knew that there was something wrong that I did, and I wasn't consciously processing this. So it's quite possible that the subconscious somehow kind of orchestrated a scenario where I would have to be confronted with what I was running away from. Because I think periods where we go numb is caused by the fact that we are unwilling to process certain emotions because of, the fact that we're afraid of it. And so my subconscious wanted me to process these emotions. So it kind of perhaps set me up in a situation where I was forced to trip, and through the resistance and through the fear of letting go, I was forced to confront what it was that had been making me numb for this entire time. I had to get to the core of my negative emotions and find, the cause of it. But I think it was only possible to learn the cause of it and the core of my problems because I had that positive mentality that was saying, you don't have to feel like this. That's what I believe anyway. I'll leave it there, guys. But in the meantime, I wanted to thank my patrons, especially Peter Verslin, Casper Wazinga, and I also had another patron, but he wants to stay anonymous. But still, all three of you, from the bottom of my heart, you can't imagine how much your support motivates me. To all my patrons, thank you guys, all of you, so much for helping this channel grow. I also wanted to thank Shay Cambits for acting in this video. It was really fun working with you, man. And last but not least, definitely wanted to thank the animators on this. Irreality for the work that you did on the camera shots. Incredible stuff, and of course the incredible work from Focus Shift Media on the animations. Guys are super talented, got an awesome work ethic. Seriously, if any of you need any work done at all on your videos, hit these guys up. They get back to you ultra fast. I'll leave their contact details in the description below. Anyway guys, hope you're having a great day. If not, make it a great day, and I'll see you all soon. Peace. Woo! Alright, my foot's numb.